Hello and welcome to What It Takes. I'm Tom Landon. As parents, we all want what's best for our children, and we hope that they'll grow up to lead full, fulfilling lives. And one of our greatest fears may be that our children were born with a condition that may limit that possibility. My guests today help families do their very best to nurture and care for children with autism and other challenges. Angie Leonard is the founder of St. Vincent's Home and now COO of VIA Schools Southwest and Behavioral Services. And Samantha Zaldivar is the clinical director of VIA Schools Southwest. So glad to have the opportunity to speak to both of you today.
Thank you.
I think I, like many Americans who don't have direct experience with autism in my family, have a lot to learn. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you and finding out about what you do. But before we do that, I always just like to find out what brought you to this kind of work. So Samantha, I'll just start with you. What's your background?
Well, I fell into this line of work through a very happy accident, twist of fate. I started working with a family with a 2-year-old with autism when I was in graduate school, and it changed my life. I just fell in love with this family. I saw how my work with him directly impacted what he was doing. I was there when he started speaking. I was there when he all of a sudden started becoming interested in playing and interacting with people. I got to go to preschool with him and teach him how to interact with his friends and peers, and became just very close with his family. I continued with graduate school and got my degree in a different field, but I just missed this line of work so much that I ended up switching career paths and went back and returned to what then was BRAC, and rejoined and got another degree and stayed and pursued applied behavior analysis, and just wanted to continue working with families with children with autism, and have never left. So that was about 15 years ago, and have never looked back.
That's great. And you, I know you came to it a little differently.
I did. I was a public school teacher in a local school division, and life was going well, and got pregnant with our second child, and it turned out that he did not develop the same as his older sister did, and so we became frantically worried about him, and took him to specialists in Charlottesville who later diagnosed him with autism. And so that was back in 1997. I ended up leaving the field of elementary education to take care of him, and focused on resources to support him in our home and to teach him. Like Samantha mentioned, you know, he was very late in talking. He didn't eat solid foods well. He didn't respond to his name. Hardly ever gave us eye contact, and loved to carry spoons around in both fists and line them up on the carpet. And so, you know, we were most concerned about helping him to develop and grow and be as independent as possible. So I ended up, kind of a long story short, but we started an in-home program for him, which evolved into a school through my pastor at my church. We decided to start this Blue Ridge Autism Center, and he was one of the first 2 students. Girlfriend from high school, her son was diagnosed as well, and so we came together, and that was the beginning back in 2002 of serving basically kids with developmental disabilities. And you know, now we're 20 years into it, and we're serving adults and doing all kinds of things. But it was because of the love of, you know, my son that I wanted to help most, you know, importantly him, but also other families who were challenged too with what to do.
Once you start seeing the needs and the special challenges. And I want to talk about applied behavior analysis and some other things that you know, the developments that have come. But Samantha, and both of you can weigh in on this, but as the clinician of the group, you know, when we talk about autism, what is it? Because, you know, I think people throw that term around, and I know that we don't have 2 hours, but, you know, like when you, what's your best answer to that question?
Well, it's a spectrum, and I think anyone knows. I know it's the experiences of each individual. The experience of families are vastly different. Within each symptom of autism, it's a spectrum, and across the disorder, it's a spectrum. So the main symptoms of autism that are looked for in the diagnosis are communication. So how that affects somebody can be completely non-vocal or non-verbal, so not being able to speak with words, to just maybe not understanding nuances of language or maybe conversation. So that can be a wide range of differences. You know, social deficits is a main tenet of the diagnosis, and that may range from no eye contact at all, and being, you know, social isolation in some ways, or lack of motivation to join others, to just, you know, again, just some little differences in how interactions happen. So, you know, again, a range and that diagnosis. And then, you know, and then repetitive behavior. So what one might call like stereotypies. So how that looks, we often think of like the rocking, the flapping. Usually these are to stimulate the body or to either hype the body up or to calm the body down. These might be ritual behaviors, so things we need to do repeatedly. It can be a range of things, and we all do these, you know, as, right. You know, Angie's kind of moving her thumbs or twiddling them. Some people bite their nails. Everybody does these. Some people, you know, if you're waiting in a doctor's office, you probably scroll through your phone, look at Facebook.
Mine is clicking my pen.
Yes, I know. You know, my brother is a chronic, you know, he constantly shakes his leg when he's, you know, bored or understimulated. We all do these. We just know how to like hamper those so they're a little bit more acceptable. We know how to kind of restrain ourselves a little bit, and we don't need as much stimulation to our body. People with developmental disabilities typically may need more, or if they're in very anxiety-provoking situations, it might be the only way to calm themselves. So that is where many of those are triggered from. So the ritualistic behaviors, the repetitive behaviors, these are the main symptoms of autism that we think of. But what we have to remember is that it's a range. So right. You can't really say this is what autism looks like, because it looks very different for every person and for every family who experiences it. People often think of challenging behavior as a sign of autism, but it's not. It's just often something that happens as a symptom of the other things that are happening. If you have a lot of anxiety, if you have very limited communication, if, you know, if people are pushing you to do things you don't understand, if your brain is firing in a different way, challenging behavior is going to happen. So challenging behavior is often associated with people with autism. People with autism have much more very difficult, challenging, aggressive, self-injurious behavior. That is a symptom of autism because of the other components of autism. So we have to recognize that there are many people with autism. There are many families that live with their family members who have challenging behavior because of some of the other difficulties that happen with coping with a world where there are some other barriers going on. And that's the work we do, is trying to help our clients and our families increase skills so that those challenging behaviors are less.
And to understand what that person is going through, right. So that we can try to create an environment and a situation that is better for them. We we hear the phrase, especially in maybe the last decade, that spectrum, on the spectrum. You used it, which is, you know, perfectly appropriate, but we hear a lot of people who don't have autism talk about it using that same language. As a parent, does that ever bother you when when sort of there are misconceptions about what your child and others you serve are going through? And I don't know if that's kind of a leading question, but when you hear those, sort of the popular notions about autism, and yet you have to deal with it on a daily basis and try to do your very best. Mm-hmm. What do you say? What would you say to people who are kind of misusing the terminology?
I try to be very, thoughtful about what families are going through, and especially when you take your loved one out in public and you get the stares, and I think we've come a long way in the past decade of recognizing some of the symptomology and accepting, and even people come up and are helpful. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that we have been able to transition as a society into a more accepting and loving society. I'm very, I think, thoughtful of the spectrum and the fact that there are people who have autism who are, really independent, very passionate about being who they are and being accepted as who they are. I feel like we've made great strides in that area as well.
Just the fact that there are advocacy groups and self-advocacy groups of people, right, yes, is very, very powerful, and I've met some of them, and they are outstanding. This question could go to both of you. I'll ask you first, but when you meet a parent who has just gotten the diagnosis of maybe a very young child, mm-hmm, what is the first thing you want them to know?
Well, the first thing I say to them is I know that mountain that you're standing in front of and how impossible it looks to climb. But then, because my son is now 27 years old, employed, he still needs lots of support, but he is extremely verbal and a fun-loving guy. I can give them hope. So I start with the mountain, and then I say, you get busy, you pull up your bootstrings, and you go for it, and you do everything that you can. You create this team approach with professionals, and this is how you get there. And a lot of times, they are familiar with my son because he's been around, he's been in the school, or they've seen him at his place of employment, and it gives them hope. So, I've been there, I've done that, I know, I understand. Samantha's exactly right. They're not all the same. They are very, very different. So actually, understanding, especially for the self-advocates in the world, thank goodness for them, but also understanding that there are people much more severe than even my son. And coming in to support them is quite important for our community and for our world of professionals. So, I do get it, but sometimes I don't know, like, there are people who don't sleep at night. We have one family that they've had to put their recliner in front of their door because he will escape at night. I have not faced that. But my heart goes out to her because I do work from day to day with families that are challenged with the more significant things.
They have to really worry about safety as much as anything else.
Absolutely. Yep.
Samantha, you applied behavior analysis. Again, this is a graduate course, right? So we can't do it all now. But again, when a family comes to you and you're introducing them to what is going to happen in their lives for a long time to come, probably. How do you explain the way that you can design a plan to help them using this method?
I think our first approach, again, what we do is a science, and it's a very broad science, and it's really going to be different for each practitioner that applies the science. Just like if you go to a doctor, you're going to get a different feel from, and that's what I tell families. I say you're going to go to different clinics, you're going to go to different, and you want to make sure that you're going to find the right fit. And when we meet with families, our approach at we want to work with your child, your adult, as an individual. We want to know them. We recognize everyone is different, and the first thing we want to do is we want to know what makes our clients happy, and what we want them to know us, and we want them to walk into our school or into our clinic and know that we're their people and we're their cheerleaders, and we want our families to know that. And you had asked about when the families first receive the diagnosis. I think the first thing we can provide to them is that space where they feel that community, and because there's always that grief, that feeling of like, now what? And when our families feel, when they first see that they have other families that understand them, they start feeling okay.
Well, I mean, every topic that we talk about in this program, we tackle a lot of society's big problems. I mean, we just keep coming back. The answer is always community, right? The solution is always community, and so that's not surprising.
And I think it's the same with our families and with our clients. I'm not looking to change my clients. I'm not looking to change the kids. I'm looking to enhance their skills. I'm looking to, if things are dangerous, if things are unsafe, if they don't have the communication, we're looking to increase that. We're looking to enhance their skill repertoire, and we're looking to love the things that are already great about them. And I think that's what we want families to know. I think a lot of people have the misconception that applied behavior analysis and things are looking to change people, and that's not at all what we're doing. We want our kids to be the wonderful, sometimes quirky people that they are, and we want them to rock and flap and spin, and we want them to do all those things, and we'll do it with them. And we're going to add to that communication, and we're going to add to that grocery shopping, and we're going to add to that being able to, come back and stay with me if I need you to stay with me. Instead of running across the street, and
sure.
that.
And I guess a lot of it is, as a parent, as a society, we have expectations of certain things are going to happen at certain ages, when they're going to walk, when they're going to talk, when they're going to, write cursive or whatever it might be. So in a lot of ways, it's just a kind of a changing of the milestones, right? So tell me, was there a milestone that you remember in the life of your child that, it might not have seemed like a big thing to somebody else, but to you, it really made all the difference?
Well, my son didn't sleep. And so we were, up all night. We were my husband and I were tag teaming. We were exhausted. That's not necessarily a milestone, but it definitely was something that got our attention. It was really my mom who said, I don't think he's reaching his milestone. We were so exhausted. But she was the one who said, I think that you really need to go back and, I was a public school teacher. I knew what milestones were.
Right.
Go back and recheck some of those things. And, then it started to click with me. Oh, yeah. He's not really.
It's going to be a different scale for
this
one.
Right. What I was hearing quite a bit, and I hear this from lots of parents, is he's a boy, he'll catch up. They're just a little bit slower in things, and that's not what I needed to hear. I needed to know, well, you can be a couple of months behind, but when you're 4 and you're not talking, that's a problem, right?
Right, and I guess, that's an interesting concept too, and I do want to talk specifics about your organization in just a second, but also you've kind of talked about the wrong thing to say to somebody who's experiencing this. What are some of the right things to say as a friend, as a neighbor, as a school person? What can we say to make the family, I don't know about feel better, but just what can we do to help?
Well, it's hard as I think a friend, as a family, it is hard, but I know when I have families that come in, I have faced that a lot with still, I think that's out there with always just a boy or just be patient. What we know is the earlier the intervention, the better the prognosis. The studies have shown that time and time again. And honestly, the studies have also shown that diagnosis can happen even before 2. I mean, we can see this. Typically, diagnosis isn't going to happen until 2 by the way the diagnosis is set up. But the later the diagnosis happens, the harder it is. So I tell families, anyone who has children, you know, I have 2 children. You know your child. You know if something's just not right, it's not clicking or something, and don't second guess yourself. You know, if you're not getting the answers you think you should be getting, go get a second opinion. Go get a third opinion. Go, you know, I know our facility, we have families come in all the time to get information, and we can help point you towards other community resources. That's why we're here, and there are other resources out there in the community to provide information just to help families. That's what we're here for. And so I would follow your mom heart, your dad heart, and say, I need help, and get that other opinion. If you're saying, my kid's just not talking, my kid's not looking at me, my kid's not bringing me their empty juice cup, my kid's not leading me to the fridge, and I know they're hungry, my kid's just banging on the TV when they want a show, then I would reach out.
So as friends, we can encourage people to trust their instincts, and also to not try to fix it, I guess, to say, oh, it's going to be fine, right? Because it may be, but it might not.
And I think not feel silly to call and just pick up the phone and say, hey, why don't you just call around and see if this organization,
right?
if this organization can help you or lead you to get some help.
Let's talk about some of the specifics of the many programs that are under your umbrella, and I don't want to run out of time without getting to them. So St. Vincent's Home, what services does it provide? What is it?
Well, St. Vincent's Home most recently merged with the Virginia Institute of Autism, which is a nonprofit program in Charlottesville that runs almost exactly the same programs that we do. So I'm going to speak between Charlottesville, Lexington, Lynchburg, and Roanoke. Those are the service areas. We serve 25 school divisions and probably close to 500 children and families in this region.
Is this more of a, when you talk about school divisions, are the services provided, you know, K-12 and beyond? I know the services can extend up to 21, right?
Right. So we have schools, and via schools in Central and via schools in the Southwest region do the same things. We offer school services for children ages 2 all the way up to 22. And then we extend out and offer adult services such as day programming and community engagement programs. We have viable ventures where our adults make candles, and we have hub prints where they screen print bags, and they also gain employment, and we're talking competitive employment where you're making minimum wage or better. And then we offer in-home services where we go in and support those. We have outpatient behavioral health services, psychological services. It's, you know, it's a pretty big organization that tries to hit on every facet of a person's life that might have an intellectual or developmental disability.
And my very first, when I first started researching and making some phone calls about this, because autism's a broad topic, and a friend said, "Oh, you really need to check out Katie's Place." So what is it, and you know, how does that fit into everything else?
Well, Katie's Place is a place for adults to come have a very full, vivid life. So a lot of times when people leave school services, they have nowhere to go. Right. So Katie's Place is a day program. They come, they volunteer at local nonprofits, they cook, they clean, they develop friendships and relationships, they do arts and crafts, they make things. you know, they just come and hang out with their friends. They can come 5 days a week, or they can come 3 days a week. They might have a job for, you know, a couple days a week and come to Katie's place the other days. It's just the happening place. They are young adults who are fun, and if you ever get to come spend a day with them, they will make your day every single time. They're a fun group of people.
Well, I mean, this is the problem with this program, is I always start running out of time. We really are almost done. Where can people go to find out more information about your organization?
So the website is always a great place to start. ViaCenters.org is the place to go and to learn about the vast array of services. Facebook, social media, Instagram, we have accounts there. Just, you know, search the name Virginia Institute of Autism. And of course, you know, just Google us and give us a call.
Use the old Google machine.
Yes.
Well, we're about out of time. So as we close the program, just want to thank my guests for shining some light on the great work they're doing to serve people with autism in Virginia. For What It Takes, I'm Tom Landon.